So, welcome to episode 1 of Beyond Borders by MSA. And for those who don't know, MSA Novo is one of the only global institutional funds systematically investing in emerging technology markets. And with Beyond Borders, we host the world's leading technology founders and game changers. And I really couldn't think of a better way to launch episode 1 with our guest today. The founder of Mina's famous exit, and the founder of Indonesia's unicorn. So I leave it to both of you to introduce yourselves.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah, and nice meeting you, Ronaldo. So hi, everyone. Very glad to be here. My name is Fajrin. I co-founded Bukalapak, which is one of the leading commerce platforms in Indonesia. We went public in 2021, raising about 1.5 billion US dollars.
My name is Ronaldo Mshahwar. I'm the co-founder of Souk.com. Souk.com was one of the largest e-commerce platforms serving customers in the Gulf and Egypt. We were acquired by Amazon in 2017. Currently, I run Amazon in the Middle East and Africa.
Great, thank you guys. So let's jump into it. Ronaldo, starting with you. I mean, we've seen how in markets like the US, where the majority are banked, right? But Amazon still enabled cash payments, like it's in its Go stores, to cater to the people that are unbanked. So even in these markets, we see that cash remains there. So in Mina, other than incentivizing people towards digital payments, with Souk, how were you able to cater to those that insisted on cash payments, and what were your challenges?
I mean, obviously, the key with payments are two things. You have to accept payments the way customer wants to pay you. If they want to pay you in certain countries with cash, debit card, credit cards, tokens, points. I'm a big believer that you kind of need to work customer backwards from what they use. A different problem is try to digitize them over time and bringing over to what we're all familiar with, which is the normal electronic payments. But with cash, I think we focus on two things. Obviously, you have the delivery experience where your drivers, carry cash, deliver products, receive products, the way the life cycle of an order, how fast you are, how slow you are, matters for cash customers more because they post-pay you versus pre-pay you. And then the second part of it is how fast we can pay back to our merchants who sell these products. So with cash, you have longer cycles, your reconciliation from remote areas takes longer. And we worked hard at Souk trying to digitize that. So it's a one-step delivery in payment. And we thought like our drivers were like a payment gateway for our business. So that's on the process flow. Also, returns are more complex in a digital environment. Someone returns a product, you just refund their bank account. If he's unbanked, the return cycles, do you give him credit? Do you give him cash? Sometimes customers wants to mix an older credit that's left in the account plus some cash. So your transaction nature where you have multiple payment methods serving one transaction gets a bit more complicated to resolve. From another standpoint, you have the whole issue of safety. Drivers with a lot more cash, they're susceptible to a lot more incidents. You have customers who change their mind often because they haven't committed to you. So in a way, you're a small bank lending customers a credit and the right to buy till the product reaches them and pay it. So we had to manage how many they buy, the frequency, especially when we have these big events. We have a big event called White Friday, where our consumption goes, customer consumption goes quite high because the prices and the events are very attractive and demand scales. And with that, we had to manage, to make sure that they're the right customers getting the right products and not someone trying just to block some other customer from either selling or buying products. So we have a different fraud and abuse cycles that you need to worry about. But those are the two. And then the third part, as you said, how do we incentivize customers to move to a digital payment method. Many of our customers, initially, we thought they had cards, they just didn't want to use them online. So it was more about how accurate your delivery is, how good your service is, building trust, and becoming a destination. Over time, we've seen many of our customers have switched over.
And
So that was our.
do you feel that cash on delivery has, in a way, promoted the consumer loyalty towards Souq?
I think at the time it was the only way. Like, you had only 10% of Egyptians bank. We had, at the time, Saudi was about 23% of customers had a credit card. Even in the UAE, more than 50% didn't want to use their credit card online. So it was a way to just accept payments and build the business. And trust is earned. So as they used us, they got comfortable either with our service, product, quality, prices. And over time, they found it more convenient to move to a digital payment method. But we also worked with the local banks, card schemes, trying to build a specific incentive, especially on our application, to have people store their credit card. But it was a journey. We started with no credit card accepted to, countries where almost all payments today are done electronically, be it debit, credit.
Yeah, it's definitely like building a relationship, and especially in the region. So Fajreen, back to you. So mom and pop shops, are the backbone of Indonesia's economy, and the majority are still bank offline. And we know that Indonesia is the second largest cash economy in the world. So these metrics are crazy. So when you were building Bukalapak, how were you able to convince and onboard these SMEs?
Yeah, so first of all, you are correct that I think around 70% of commerce in Indonesia, of offline commerce in Indonesia, is actually done through this traditional mom and pop stores, what we in Indonesian called warung, right? Whereas the modern store is only about 30%. So I think, and this is something that probably unique or maybe happens only in a few countries, is that we leverage this mom and pop stores. One as an onboarding channel, right? So we essentially empower them for them to be able to also become a merchant. But also second is to make them as a payment channel as well, right? So when we say cash payment in Indonesia, one way is to do a COD, like Ronaldo just now mentioned. But what is also popular in Bukalapak and also some other e-commerce players is you pay using cash on these mom and pop stores. So the way it works is that first, as a customer, you complete the transaction in mobile or in a laptop. Then when you want to pay, you choose the method pay in these mom and pop stores, right? Then you go into these mom and pop stores, and then you essentially pay using cash to the mom and pop store owners. Right, so this has been one of the most popular method in Bukalapak and some other e-commerce players in Indonesia, which sells as a benefit to this mom and pop store as well. Because once the customer is in their mom and pop stores, usually they also try to browse around what happened in the mom and pop stores, and probably most likely will buy something else there.
Okay. There's a reason you two are the leaders in this space for sure. So, we've spoken about what you've done, but I think where we want to take this discussion forward is what's going to happen. So I really want to hear your thoughts on what will be the next big opportunity in technology when it comes to payments, so that the unbanked don't have to go through the traditional adoption cycle of digital payments. They don't have to open bank accounts, issue cards, and so on. So what do you think, in your opinion, is the next big thing in technology? Ronaldo, we can start with you.
We have seen two trends, right? You have seen countries like India where the government stepped in and created a seamless way that companies can use to identify and send money to customers. And then on top of that, you have different wallet and different payment application to help. Basically, you're almost paying to a phone number. This is also, or to a national ID. This is also prevalent in Africa, where almost your phone acts like your wallet. So everyone has a phone. I think if you want to be today in any sort of an economy, even if you're a carpenter, a driver. Seems like technology adoption is on the way up as the cost of phones and bandwidth has come down over time. It becomes a critical instrument today. A lot of our customers do many things, for example, on WhatsApp and so forth. So with that, you just need to marry the phone with a payment method. And to Farjan's earlier comment, people are used to topping up mobile, their prepaid phones in the store. So there's a lot of movement around that. Digital wallet is one. Maybe with blockchain, you can even simplify the identity and tracking of these transactions, bringing more transparency. So many countries have taken that route. Obviously, at the same time, cards and banking, there's some innovation there where some banks, while they are very heavily regulated, so it's difficult for, I think, a bank that caters to a very sophisticated, high net worth customers and companies and this low end or newly banked customers to merge the two with simplified processes has not been simple, but we have seen some digital banks come up. But ideally, you want peer-to-peer payments to be seamless. Some governments have stepped in to allow that to happen under like a unified national program. We have seen in Saudi, for example, Mada, which is a kind of a local switch, take over that problem where salaries are deposited into a debit card, and then you can use that card to transact. The challenge remains is some customers want to build credit, overspend. Like when you buy a car, you buy a laptop, you may not want to pay for it all at once, and then building some financial tools and services on top of these schemes that are mostly debit based. So it's like you have an account, you top up and you use, is a new sort of financial instruments. And we have seen in the region, for example, buy now, pay later companies scale on top. While you have a digital instrument, you don't have financial tools on top. And these are some of the services that you can build on top of the kind of a digitized cash, but without the lending capability.
Okay. So Fajrin, like Ronaldo mentioned, I mean, you have countries like India that have embraced unified payment interface. You have Brazil that recently followed with Pix. Do you think there are similar developments in Indonesia, or is there something bigger?
Yeah, I think the vision is going there, right? So similar to some countries in the Middle East, like just Ronaldo mentioned, in Indonesia, we are also seeing the trends of the popularity of the wallet, right? So we have maybe 4 or 5 leading wallet players in the country. And we also see the trend of the digital bank as well happen in Indonesia. So in the last 1 or 2 years, I think there are around 4 or 5 digital banks came in, right? And it becomes really popular that it forces the traditional bank to also simplify their onboarding process, right? So even the traditional bank that previously, you need to go to the bank if you want to open an account. Now, some of the biggest bank, you don't need to. So it's going into the route of the digital bank, where essentially through the application, through your mobile, you can actually open a bank account. You still need to do like a video call to as a KYC process. So it's not as seamless as the wallet, but it's getting there, right? So wallet usually happens for a small transaction, like around $10, and the limit of the wallet is about $2,000, whereas the bank is unlimited, right? So that's the only differentiation. And previously, before 2019 or 20, I think. Each wallet, to boost the transaction, they introduce discount, right? Voucher, cashback, etc. And so the way they do that is they set up their QR code in each of the merchants, right? So, okay, if you want to pay using this wallet A, you get this cashback. This is the QR code. And then wallet B, do the similar thing. So in each of the merchants, there are like many QR codes, maybe 4 or 5 different QR codes. So it's really, really crowded in each of the store. So then the Central Bank of Indonesia, introduced what is called QRIS, or it's read CRIS. Essentially, it's a standardized QR code, right? So now using one QR code, everyone can pay using any wallets or any bank accounts. they just scan this standardized QR code. So from the merchant point of view, it becomes much easier, right? So the merchant just display one QR code, one single QR code, then everyone can pay using any wallets or any bank account. So that's on the QR. And I think the similar trend or vision is also going on the back end, right? On the switching payment gateway, etc. So that's something that I think is on progress and potentially will also become next big thing in Indonesia.
Okay, Ronaldo, what's your take on that?
No, I think so. And I think add to that, I feel with these tools, I mean, using the phone, the QR codes, even the merchants accepting digital payment goes up. I mean, some merchants want to receive quick payments. You're sending someone flowers, you're in a shop, someone orders something and, you want to just deliver the goods, but you want to accept payment. So I think for the merchant side, kind of like a mini POS, also that part of the business will drive demand because as the merchant gets more and more sophisticated, or at least through his phone on tablet, is able to cater to digital payment, customer choice will shift because just it's easy, it's simple. At the end of the day, you want tech that is simple and easy, and that's how adoption comes.
And what do you guys think about biometrics? Because you still have a significantly large population, especially in MENA, that are unable to not only open up bank accounts, but are in many cases unable to even, have digital wallets or so on because they require some papers. So how do you think biometrics can be the next big thing and can be leveraged with the existing models?
I mean, for identity, if you talk about identity in particular, you can now use the phone as an extension like a face opening, face IDs and things that are related to you personally through your phone. The phone has a camera, has a mic. Some have tried even like speaking to a password or whatever. So those tools will come, and more identity ability to identify users through the phone is something that is already happening. Many banks have extended beyond their just a traditional login. I've also seen some unified government login that you could use across multiple platforms that tie to your identity. We see one in the UAE with UAE Pass, so it's tied to your Emirates ID, and many government and now some non-government services, utilities, like rent, fees, school tuitions you could pay with these IDs. So obviously it helps just simplify the identification process. So there's room for them, for sure. With the mobile phone, the only problem with the mobile phone index is some customers change their phones, and then migrating that data is sometimes a pain. Some applications do it well, but then your phone may recirculate with another customer. So that's some of the challenges with the countries that have a lot more prepaid than postpaid, where the phone doesn't remain like your national ID forever with you.
Fajrin, do you see that? I mean, you come from the telcos industry now, and you're working heavily with them. So how do you see that coming into play as well?
Yeah, so exactly as mentioned by Ronaldo just now, right? Indonesia, I think 95% around that is prepaid, right? So a lot of customers actually change their phone numbers. So that's why biometric is actually one of the thing that is used as well here for identification, because we have a central government data that the telco company or other company that needs verification can use this biometric data then to complement or replace the video call as a KYC. Just now I mentioned in the phone, and I think going forward is also opportunity for Indonesia to also expand or build partnership with other countries, right? So something that is already happening is actually the QR system that I mentioned before. It's already happening in a few countries outside Indonesia, right? So the standardized QR code just now I mentioned is also applied, I think, in Malaysia, Thailand, and one or two other countries in Southeast Asia, right? So as an Indonesian right now, I can go to Malaysia and Thailand and pay using the Indonesian wallet that I have in the merchant in Thailand or Malaysia using the QR code there.
Okay. Well, speaking about that region, there's also a lot of, we see a lot of Chinese tech influence, especially in Southeast Asia. And I think with MSA's experience, we've seen firsthand on how emerging markets are scaling with Chinese models and Chinese mobile first models because of their high velocity and low cost. So do you think in emerging markets, whether it's Southeast Asia or MENA, the emerging markets can evolve into payments using Chinese technology?
I think it's one of the.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
I'll
Okay.
let you go. It seems like closer to your market than ours.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Southeast Asia is really close to China, right? In the sense that we are both developing countries. Most of us, right? Most of us in Southeast Asia. And the second, in terms of the is SME structure. So a lot of merchants in China are SMEs, and it's similar in Indonesia. Potentially different with the one in the US, for example. So a lot of Chinese technologies are actually applied here, right? The wallet that I mentioned, the QR code, it's pretty similar in terms of the concept, in terms of the technology with the one that is working in China. And when I mentioned just now, there are few wallets here. Some of them are actually invested by Chinese companies, right? So, for example, we have Dana, which is actually a joint venture between local company and also Alipay or Ant Financial. And similarly with other Chinese companies as well. I guess some of the wallet in Indonesia either is invested or partnered with the Chinese companies. So I see some of the trend as well in terms of what is happening in China right now, like BNPL, for example, and then also in terms of the fraud detection. All are brought into Indonesia and some countries in Southeast Asia. Although some obviously need to be tailored to local context, right? Because the situation is not 100% same. So a tailored made solution is also needed, including in Indonesia.
Okay, and I think Ronaldo also does apply to the region. I mean, not geographically probably, but in terms of consumer behavior, we've seen that a lot of these Chinese models work perfectly in emerging markets, and especially in MENA region. They have very similar consumer behaviors. So do you think, especially with all of these economic ties happening now with China and the region, what's your take on that?
I mean, I think the Chinese have tech industry is very mobile centric. In a way, it supersedes the need for a laptop or a computer, and they're all mobile first tech. A lot of what we see from the Western world kind of has evolved and not as focus on mobile as the way things are changing. But that was initially why I think there has been an uptake on the use of some of the tools. I feel the region for us is a bit more segmented. So you have the GCC, it's high net worth individuals, very westernized, digital payments super advanced. You have the card schemas like Visa, MasterCard already have a significant share of the customer, the bank population. So with those, I don't know if we will adopt many of the Chinese tools or way of doing business. When you move into Africa, some of the rest of the Middle East, Egypt, obviously the problems to Ferjana's point become a lot more similar, and I think you will see the need to innovate and while you have to still localize a lot for payments, depending on the regulatory environments, one of those highly regulated industries, there are definitely practices that we can at least get inspired from what has happened in Southeast Asia and India and move it over. So we see both. It just depends how developed the countries are. So the Middle East is a bit of a mixed pie where you have oil producing, highly populous, lower income, and you have a spectrum. So I don't want to generalize that it'll all work for MENA.
Yeah, I think, as you said, localization is key, given any model.
We have so many wallets, not one of them yet have had a big traction. The ones that are working are tied to telco, but to the Ferjan's model, earlier, there are payment stores where you go pay for services in stores. There's big networks have already been set up because you had to do bill pay early on, and they've evolved to become like a payment wallet or a payment depository points to collect and deposit cash to replace the bank. So So those have worked in Egypt, for example. There are a couple of companies who do that very well and have scaled to thousands of access points, replacing an ATM and a Visa card or a MasterCard.
Fajreen, do you think it's similar in Southeast Asia in terms of localization, or is it relatively close? Like when you look at, let's say, Malaysia and Indonesia, do you have to localize these different models, or how does scalability work when you're looking at that region?
There are similarity, but obviously there are differences as well, right? So, for example, Singapore is obviously one of the uh, most advanced one compared to the Indonesia, right? So the traditional store there, as a percentage of total commerce, is probably way less than Indonesia, right? Indonesia is probably a bit similar to Philippines in terms of the geographic as well. We have so many islands, a lot of mom and pop stores as well. That's probably the reason as well. Bukalapak trying to first expand in Southeast Asia to Philippines, right? So currently, I think there are small networks of Philippines mom and pop stores also using Bukalapak products. Other countries like Thailand, Malaysia is probably slightly more advanced than Indonesia in terms of the traditional stores, and perhaps then the customer behavior is also more advanced. But I think overall, we are similar with China, with the exception perhaps Singapore, in terms of the mobile first. So a lot of countries in Southeast Asia experience internet firsthand in the mobile, right? So they experience Facebook, for example, in mobile. Whereas me, myself, for example, I tried using Facebook in the desktop first, right, before they come to the mobile. So that's why the Chinese technology in terms of the mobile first is also working in many countries in Southeast Asia.
Okay, that's great. Okay, I mean, for the sake of time, I'd love to go on, but I'd like to wrap it up with one final question for you both. So, what's your biggest non-obvious lesson that you learned in building your companies and cash economies? So, Ronaldo, we'll start with you.
I mean, the not so obvious is to shy away from like, hey, initially couriers didn't accept cash, and you want to support a customer, and many of our competitor maybe initially tried to work and copy what worked everywhere else. And while it's like thinking practically, you think you want to localize. Traditionally, even when we hire employees, I'd like ask him, hey, did you buy something yet on Souq? He says, yeah, but my credit card is still not working. I moved over and I haven't yet gone to a bank. And I'm like, but we offer cash on delivery. So it wasn't so obvious that these models you can scale them with tech. And they are a critical bridge to scale the digital economy. We embarked on thinking that the courier is an ATM machine. Is something you don't initially comprehend. But it turned out that also the courier had to deposit money into ATM machines when they collect them, so the merchants get paid. And we managed to create this cash ecosystem that little by little converted to a digital economy. It would have been very easy to say, you can only accept credit cards and let's move and stick with the 1% of the population and never scale to where we are. So I think just what wasn't obvious, how challenging once you do it to scale it, how much tech you need to put into it. But it was a fun journey for sure. I'm glad that a lot of these are behind us in MENA, but obviously it's a curve. It's about a 10-year, I think, cycle to get from where we started to makes ePay prevalent on e-commerce sites.
Yeah, well, no, definitely you've executed and definitely changed and transformed a digital culture in the region for sure. Fajreen, on to you.
Yeah, I think besides localization, one thing that I notice is that tech is not always disruptive, right? Meaning that the customer change is not always so big. So, for example, the big changes or the disruptive changes is Uber, right? So before you you book, you ride taxi, you hail taxi manually, and then you pay manually using cash or probably credit card. And then using Uber, it's all changed, right? The way you book, the way you pay, it's all changed. But tech is not always like that, right? So in the case of cash payment, for example, it's not always okay. Before it was cash, and then okay, let's change it into not cash at all, right? It's not always like that. So, for example, in the case of Bukalapak, we still use cash, but what we use in terms of technology is actually creating an application for the mom and pop store owners, right? So that's the tech that we make, so that from the customer point of view, it's a combination. You still order in application, but then you go into the mom and pop store and then do a cash payment there. So the changes is incremental, right? So not all of the function is actually changed. So that's one of the changes that can be done as well, versus the distributed changes, right? So when you want to change the customer behavior, you can also consider this type of changes, incremental changes, not always the disruptive changes. And what I see, the incremental changes is easier to educate the customer, right? Because they are less disruptive, right? They are still tap into the customer daily activities or daily needs, right? I go to the mom and pop store usually maybe once every day or once every few days, right? Now I just need to pay the online thing there, versus if I force a customer to use a new payment method that the customer didn't know before, right? So it's more difficult to educate the customer.
Okay, that's great insights. I mean, you look at all of these different emerging markets, so similar yet, there's definitely a lot of micro localization happening there. Guys, I want to thank you so much for your time. This has been short, but super insightful, and we look forward to publishing the first episode of Beyond Borders with you.